You're not broke, you're misaligned, you're not stuck, you're vibrating at the wrong frequency. And the second you realize the problem was never the world, but your inner code, that's the moment everything begins to shift. Manifestation isn't magic, it's war. And right now, you're losing. You're not waiting for your future, you're delaying it with every excuse you tolerate. Manifestation isn't about writing goals on paper and hoping they show up. It's about locking into the version of you who already lives that life mentally, emotionally, physically, and refusing to move like anything less. Most of you aren't stuck. You're just still negotiating with the version of yourself that's scared to evolve. But evolution doesn't wait. It rewards the obsessed. You want a better reality? Start moving like the man who already owns it. People think the dream shows up first, then the confidence follows. Wrong. Confidence is the cause, not the result. The moment you believe hard enough, the world starts to bend. The money, the body, the respect, the status, none of it comes until you decide you're already worthy. Manifestation isn't magic, it's memory. The memory of a future so detailed, so vivid, you stop asking if and start moving like it's done. That's how you win. That's how you become what you want. You're not unlucky, you're untrained. You don't lack opportunity, you lack focus. The world didn't conspire to hold you back. You've simply been playing at half strength, hoping that life will reward hesitation. But life doesn't bend for the hesitant, it obeys the certain. And the man you want to become, he doesn't wait for permission. He creates alignment so fierce, the universe has no choice but to adjust. That's what manifestation really is. Not dreams floating on candles, but intention forged in fire. People think manifestation is some mystical fairy tale, like it's about asking, wishing, begging, but you don't manifest what you hope for. You manifest what you believe you are. Your identity is the magnet. You attract not what you want, but what you are. That truth alone should shake the foundation of everything you've been doing. Because right now, your life is a printout of your inner code. Every dollar you don't have, every boundary you let people cross, every dream that feels distant, it's all echoing from within. That's not a curse, that's power. Because if you built this version by accident, imagine what you could do on purpose. You've been hypnotized by excuses and they've disguised themselves as logic. You say, I'm trying my best, but your best isn't rooted in vision, it's rooted in survival. There's a massive difference. Surviving is reacting. Manifesting is directing. Most of you wake up and let the world dictate who you are. Notifications, opinions, low energy people. You absorb it all before you even breathe with purpose. Then you wonder why your life looks average. The world mirrors your dominant energy. It's not cruel, it's accurate. And the truth is you're already manifesting it, just in the wrong direction. You doubt yourself and life gives you more to doubt. You hesitate and doors close. You say one day and that day never comes. Every weak thought is a blueprint. Every time you say, I can't, your subconscious records it and builds your reality around it. And then you look at others winning and think they got lucky, but they didn't. They programmed their belief system so deeply that reality had no choice but to follow. They created an image of themselves so strong that the world eventually snapped to match it. The problem isn't that manifestation doesn't work, it's that you've been using it against yourself. Every time you reinforce your limits with language, behavior, or emotional cowardice, you're broadcasting a frequency of failure. And here's what most never understand. Manifestation doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to vibration. You can say, I want to be rich 1,000 times, but if your body is slouched, your breath shallow, and your decisions rooted in fear, the signal is scrambled. And a scrambled signal never gets answered. But let me tell you the truth, they won't say. It's not too late, you're not broken, you're not doomed, you're just misaligned. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't a lack of talent, it's a lack of decision. The second you decide that your internal world is realer than your external circumstances, you become dangerous. That's when your energy changes. That's when you walk like the man who already has what he came for. That's when you stop negotiating with mediocrity and start broadcasting power. There's a version of you right now already living the dream life. He exists. He moves with clarity. He speaks with certainty. He wakes up with fire in his chest and mission in his bones. And the only thing separating you from him is belief. The second you start identifying with that man and acting like him, now not when the money arrives, not when the applause comes, but now you begin to merge with him. You start thinking the way he thinks. You eat like he eats. You train like he trains. And eventually the world catches up. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be deliberate. You don't need all the answers. You need to stop running from your own potential. Manifestation isn't a trick. It's a system. And that system only activates when you align your thoughts, your words, your emotions, and your behaviors around a singular identity. Not the man you were, not the man you're hoping to become, but the man you choose to be. Now, this moment. And if you keep living in the waiting room of your life, you will die with your dreams still in your chest. That's the brutal truth. But the gift in that truth is this: you are the architect. You've always been. And if you can build a cage with your thoughts, then you can build a kingdom. It all starts the second you stop lying to yourself. Stop blaming everything else and declare war on the version of you that accepts less than you were born for. That's not just motivation. That's the blueprint. Manifest your dreams. Become what you want. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. And don't stop until your internal vision becomes the external fact. That's the code. That's the law. That's how it's done. I remember the silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just surround you, but lives in you. The world wasn't attacking me, it was ignoring me. I had no spotlight, no noise, no validation. And that's when it hit me. If no one's coming to save me, then I'd better become the man who doesn't need saving. That was the moment I started building my second life, not with money, not with connections, but with obsession. Not the kind of obsession that screams, but the one that works quietly behind the scenes, sharpening the sword in darkness. People think your future begins when your environment changes, but it doesn't. It begins when your inner world becomes too powerful to ignore. When I was broke, I didn't feel broke. I didn't walk around with my shoulders hunched, whispering weakness into my subconscious. I moved like a man who had already arrived. I walked into rooms with the presence of someone carrying a future so real it burned through the present. The brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, and that was my edge. While others waited for the world to confirm their worth, I started broadcasting mine long before the results existed. That's the real manifestation. It's not faking, it's rehearsing. It's drilling identity so deep into your bones that your body simply obeys. Most people think your story starts when you win, but that's a lie. Your story starts when no one claps, when nothing's working, when the world sees nothing special in you and you choose to believe in the man you haven't met yet. You create him brick by mental brick. You train for a life that hasn't arrived yet. You fight battles in your head so that when life throws one at you, it's already familiar. I had no mentor, no safety net, but I had a mental theater where I ran simulations daily, visualizing victory, wealth, power, peace. Not because I had it, but because I chose to earn it. Through certainty. And that certainty turned into results. The world didn't give me a blueprint. I created it in silence. I built the image of the man I wanted to become in such detail that eventually my physical reality was forced to match it. People talk about manifestation like it's a spiritual accident. It's not. It's a deliberate construction. And once you understand that, your past becomes irrelevant. It doesn't matter where you came from, what they said about you, how many times you failed. All of that becomes noise once you understand this truth. You don't need evidence, you need clarity. There's a point when I started waking up before my alarm, not out of discipline, but because my purpose became louder than my excuses. That's when I knew I had shifted. That's when the external world started folding in ways that felt strange at first, but completely natural because I'd already lived it. I'd already driven the car, already stood on the balcony, already crushed the resistance. My body was just catching up to my mind. People called it confidence, but it wasn't. It was memory. The memory of a future that hadn't physically arrived, but had spiritually matured. I never begged for success. I demanded it, not from people, for myself. Because I realized something early. This world doesn't give you what you ask for. It gives you what you become. That's why most of you stay stuck. You keep chasing dreams with the identity of a man who still doubts. And that's the problem. You can't attract abundance with a scarcity frequency. You can't manifest power while moving like a shadow of who you could be. The man you want to become isn't waiting. in the future. He's buried under layers of hesitation, insecurity, and self-imposed limits. Your job is to strip all of that away, not by hoping, but by declaring. You know when things started to change for me? When I stopped asking how long will it take and started asking how long can I hold the vision without compromise. That's what separates you from the herd. They want fast results. You want lasting identity. They want applause. You want alignment. Because once you've lived something vividly enough in your head, the external result doesn't even surprise you, it confirms you. You don't celebrate, you nod. Because you've already been there 100 times internally. I was never chasing success. I was sculpting the man who commands it. Every early morning, every quiet evening, every decision that felt inconvenient at the time, it was a vote for the future version of myself. And I placed those votes long before the world caught on. You want to know what manifestation really feels like? It feels like walking into your dream reality and not blinking. Because in your soul, you knew it was coming. People talk about confidence like it's a personality trait. It's not, it's preparation. It's the result of living two lives, the one the world sees and the one you've already mastered in your mind. That's what I did. I trained both, I lived both, and when they finally met, the explosion was undeniable. Not too late, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're just underdeveloped. And that's good news, because development is a choice. Every single day you delay building that internal image, you delay the life it could unlock. But the second you say, I'm done waiting, I'm done doubting, I'm done asking, the world starts to respond. Because when you build something strong enough inside, the outside eventually bows to it. So remember this, your story isn't just about what's happened to you, it's about what you choose to believe before the evidence exists. You want to manifest your dreams? Then carry yourself like the man who already owns them. Let your imagination become your blueprint. Let your inner world become your anchor. And let your identity become so unshakable that reality has no option but to follow. Because in the end, it's not luck, it's not fate, it's not magic. It's alignment. The man who builds his future in silence becomes unstoppable the moment the world starts to hear the echo. And once that echo becomes a roar, there's no going back. You want to manifest your dreams? Then stop fantasizing, start embodying, become what you want, and don't stop until you forget it was ever a dream to begin with. Every second you spend hesitating is a silent vote for failure. The clock doesn't pause because you're unsure. The world doesn't delay its rewards because you're still doubting. Reality isn't interested in your excuses. It's responding to your frequency. And right now, that frequency is either broadcasting strength or signaling weakness. You don't get what you want by hoping life slows down. You get it by realizing it never will and becoming the kind of man who keeps up regardless. People always say, what if I fail? But the real question is, what if you don't try? What if you wake up in 10 years, still repeating the same justifications, still clinging to comfort, still afraid to become the version of you that's been screaming to be born? That fear you feel, it's not a sign to retreat. It's a signal. Fear doesn't mean stop, it means step forward, because behind that wall is everything you've ever wanted. The truth is, your dream doesn't live in ease. It lives just past discomfort. It lives at the edge of your current identity. And most of you are so afraid of breaking that version that you settle for cages you've outgrown. There's something nobody tells you about regret. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It waits. It follows you into quiet moments. You'll be sitting alone on no noise, and suddenly it reminds you, you had a window, a chance, a decision you didn't make, a door you didn't open. That kind of pain doesn't go away. Regret has a way of showing you the man you could have been. And the longer you delay the transformation, the louder that voice gets. Not because the world is punishing you, but because deep down, you always knew you were capable of more. You think you're tired. You're not tired. You're out of alignment. You're drained from fighting battles that don't even belong to the version of you that's rising. You weren't built to survive like this. You were built to lead, to dominate, to inspire. But you've been negotiating with the weaker voice inside you, that voice that says, maybe tomorrow, maybe when it's easier, maybe when I feel ready. But there is no easier, there is no perfect day, there is only now. The man who waits for the perfect moment dies in pieces. You either move or you dissolve. You don't need more time, you need more clarity. And clarity comes from decision. The moment you decide who you are, without flinching, without apology, the world begins to bend. This is the law of alignment. You don't manifest by accident. You manifest by becoming magnetic through consistency, certainty, and brutal honesty. If you say you're meant for greatness, then act like it. If you believe you're chosen, then move like you've already been crowned. The body listens to the mind. The world listens to both. You have to become obsessed with the idea that your dream is already yours. It's just hidden behind a layer of laziness, fear, and distraction. Your job isn't to chase it. Your job is to strip away everything that doesn't align with it. And that requires war. Not with others, with yourself. With the voice that says you're not ready. With the habits that scream mediocrity. With the thoughts that delay your evolution. You think the fight is out there, but it never was. The war is internal. The world just reflects the winner. You want to know how to create urgency? Realize this: someone else is manifesting harder than you. Someone out there is tuning into the same frequency, but with more precision, more hunger, more fire. And if you stay in doubt, he takes your dream. That's the part you don't want to hear, but it's real. Life doesn't reward the one who wants it most. It rewards the one who aligns the fastest. The one who removes doubt before it roots. The one who decides now, not later. The reason you haven't manifested what you want yet isn't because you're cursed. It's because you're still attached to an identity that doesn't belong in the future you crave. You say you want millions, but you still think like someone surviving paycheck to paycheck. You want respect, but your posture betrays insecurity. You want peace, but you fuel chaos with your habits. There's no room for contradiction in high-level manifestation. You either match the energy of the outcome or you repel it. Every man is given two lives. The second one begins when he realizes the first can be rewritten at any moment. The second you see yourself not as a product of your past, but as the architect of your future, you become dangerous. That's when you start walking differently. That's when people feel your presence before you speak. Not because of arrogance, but because of resonance. Your frequency has become too focused to ignore. You don't need to prove your power, you need to embody it. You don't need permission to evolve, you need to reject anything that doesn't mirror your higher self. And when people try to bring you back down to their level, don't argue, don't explain, just rise. Because your alignment is louder than their opinions. And the future doesn't belong to those who talk about it. It belongs to those who move like it's already done. So the next time doubt creeps in, remind yourself, I don't need more proof. I need more alignment. That's the game. That's the edge. That's the mindset that turns dreams into evidence. Manifest your future, not by asking for it, but by walking like it's already your reality. The world doesn't give you what you beg for, it gives you what you mirror. Become what you want and watch everything else follow. There comes a point when motivation isn't optional, it becomes oxygen. You stop using it as a pick-me-up and start using it as a permanent internal current. Because when you're truly aligned with your vision, you don't need a push. You're pulled. Pulled by the man you're becoming. Pulled by the future that keeps flashing in your head like a prophecy you refuse to abandon. And in that state, you don't care how long it takes. You don't ask if it's working yet, you know. You know because you feel it in your bones even when nothing's happened yet. Especially when nothing's happened yet. This is the phase most people quit, not because they're weak, but because they still expect results to validate identity. But the elite don't wait for results to confirm who they are. They act like it's already confirmed. They move like the outcome has already unfolded. You don't manifest when the world believes in you. You manifest when your belief becomes louder than your circumstances. That's the difference. That's the line between the spectators and the creators. And once you cross that line, you never go back. I've seen people break, not from failure, but from delay. They couldn't stand the silence. They couldn't handle the weight. But what they never understood is that silence is part of the manifestation. It's the training ground. It's the sacred space where your actions begin aligning so deeply with your internal image that the world has no option but to mirror it back. If you can't walk through the season of nothingness like you're already holding everything, you'll never hold anything real. And the universe doesn't respond to hunger alone. It responds to certainty disguised as routine. That's how dreams materialize. Through the repetition of a belief so strong, it becomes behavior. The man who manifests doesn't move because he's inspired. He moves because he's decided. He doesn't wait to feel like it. He acts like it's done. That's the code. That's what most of you miss. You want your dream to show up and make you feel like the man who deserves it. But it doesn't work like that. You must become the man first. And that man doesn't flinch. He doesn't beg for signs. He doesn't chase motivation like a drug. His motivation is coded into his schedule, into his silence, into his refusal to accept anything beneath the level he's aligned with. I trained my identity until the world had no choice but to respect it. That's not arrogance. That's mechanics. That's the hidden algorithm behind all success. You think the world is ignoring you because it's unfair? No, it's ignoring you because you haven't become unignorable. Energy doesn't lie. Identity doesn't lie. You can dress like a king, talk like a champion, post like a warrior, but if your actions leaked out, the universe picks up on it before anyone else does. And it withholds, not to punish you, but to protect the integrity of the system. You don't get the next level until you are the next level. Every step you take is casting a vote. Every habit you repeat is a vote for the man you're electing to become. And the man who wins isn't always the loudest. He's the most consistent, the most locked in, the most convicted. You think you need to be louder to manifest, but you don't. You need to be clearer. When your internal signal is clean, the external world responds without confusion. That's the truth. That's the difference between trying to manifest and actually bending reality. Stop waiting for applause to justify your movement. Move until your movement forces applause. Move until the version of you that once doubted becomes unrecognizable. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that settles. You don't owe your past any loyalty. If the old you wants to argue, let him scream, let him drag. But don't listen, keep walking, because the longer you entertain who you were, the longer you delay who you're meant to be. There's something about a man who trains like he's already won, who builds when no one is watching, who prepares for the reward before it even exists. That's not insanity, that's manifestation. That's the raw, unfiltered connection between belief and behavior. You don't dream casually and hope it shows up. You take the dream and install it like software. You make it part of your DNA. You stop treating your future like a maybe and start treating it like a blueprint with deadline. There's no force more powerful than a man aligned with a vision he refuses to compromise. That kind of man doesn't just want the dream, he demands it from himself. Not through words, through repetition, through discipline, through presence. He understands that manifestation is less about magic and more about memory. The memory of a future so deeply rehearsed that when it shows up, he's already fluent in it. So when people ask you what you're doing, tell them this: I'm building a frequency the future can't ignore. That's why you wake up early. That's why you train when it hurts. That's why you study, build, refine. Not because you're chasing something outside of you, but because you're aligning with something inside of you. And that's the real manifestation. It's not about waiting for your dream to knock. It's about becoming the version of you that your dream can't resist. Manifest your dreams, become what you want, and don't wait for results to feel real. Move like it's done, think like it's history, walk like the world already knows. Because the moment you align with that version of yourself without flinching, the universe doesn't just listen, it obeys. There comes a moment where the thinking stops, the planning stops, the endless theorizing, the self-help cycles, the analyzing every step. It all stops. And what's left is choice. Pure, unfiltered, brutal choice. No more timelines, no more I'm getting there, just one decision. Are you going to live in the shell of who you could have been, or are you going to become it now? Because no one's coming. No one's going to drag you into your dream. The life you want isn't behind a door someone else controls. It's behind your refusal to delay any longer. You don't need another quote. You don't need another book. What you need is war, a personal internal war against every inch of you that still flinches when you hear the call of greatness. You've had enough inspiration. You've heard enough advice. Now the mirror is staring back at you and asking, who are you really? Not who you want to be, not who you pretend to be online, but who you are in silence when there's no applause, no camera, no reward. That's the man who determines whether your future manifests or evaporates. If you knew how close you were, you'd stop playing with doubt. If you could feel the energy of the life waiting for you just one layer beyond hesitation, you'd run through every wall without blinking. The only thing separating you from everything you want is the identity you still haven't committed to. You're stuck in between, half in, half out. Dreaming big, but moving small. And that version of you, he doesn't make it. He never gets there because you don't manifest what you fantasize about. You manifest what you consistently embody. So ask yourself right now, what are you embodying? Are you thinking like the man who owns his future, or are you still reacting like the man trying to escape his past? Your dream doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your story. It only responds to alignment. And alignment isn't soft. It's violent. It's the decision to eliminate anything, anyone, and any habit that doesn't match the energy of where you're going. And if that means being alone, misunderstood, or judged, so be it. Because if you're still seeking comfort, you haven't really committed. You want the truth? You are not owed anything. The universe doesn't reward the man who waits. It rewards the man who walks into the storm with certainty. The one who speaks his future like it's already happened. The one who looks fear in the face and says, move. That's how empires are built. Not from wishing, from walking. From burning the old image of who you were and replacing it with something unshakable. That's how you become what you want, by refusing to be anything else. Most people will live and die in neutral. They'll stay in the in-between, waiting for motivation to strike hard enough to override years of weakness. But that moment never comes. Because the power was never outside of them, it was always waiting to be activated. And activation doesn't happen through luck. It happens when you decide that the future I want already exists, and I will match it whether the world agrees or not. You think success is a straight road. It's not. It's a furnace. It burns off everything you don't need. The fear, the doubt, the validation seeking. And if you're still trying to hold on to those things, you will get left behind, because the man who gets everything is the man who becomes everything, required without negotiation, without delay, without explanation. That's the standard. That's the level. That's the cost of manifestation. You keep asking for signs, but the only sign that matters is this: you're still breathing. And that means the war hasn't ended. You still have time, but not forever. That window, it closes. That fire, it dims if you don't fuel it. That potential, it rots when you don't act. And one day, you'll either be standing in the reality you once imagined, or haunted by the version of you who never arrived. That's the choice. That's the line you either cross or stare at for the rest of your life. So here it is, the final push. The final truth. Manifestation is not a dream. It's a decision. You decide who you are. You decide what you stand for. You decide what no longer belongs in your life. And once you decide, fully, violently, unapologetically, you move. You move without fear, because fear has no room in a mind that's already seen the ending. You move without apology, because your presence is not a question, an answer. You move without